Good morning and welcome to Political Voices on 92.5 Enugu's Dream FM. Political Voices is a session of comments, interviews, and analysis of the issues that are really making the headlines on the political space. Of course, we have the analysis of trending political stories as they affect and shape the world around you. Today is Wednesday. It is the 15th day of July 2020. This morning we turn our attention to the politics of budgets in Nigeria. We look at the issues and the implications. But before you meet our guests, here are stories that are trending in our political space. The House of Representatives has condemned the federal government's decision to withdraw the Nigerian candidates from this year's West African Senior School Certificate Examination because of coronavirus pandemic. The House, according to a motion titled Urgent Need to Halt Federal Government's Withdrawal from West African School Certificate Examinations and Other Common Examinations, and to provide enabling environment for students to write their examinations in accordance with NCDC guidelines. This was sponsored by Honorable Nolim Naji, representing Nkano East and West Federal Constituency, and urged President Muhammadu Buhari to reverse the decision. The West African Examinations Council, according to Honorable Naji, had stated that it shifted the examinations to between August 3rd and September 5th after due consultations with the governments of the 5 nations that constitute the council, stressing that the new date was not arbitrarily set. All right, so that's one of the issues. Another one here is that the airport, the Akano Ibiam International Airport, Enugu, will reopen for commercial activities on August 30th. The airport was closed on August 24th, 2019 for the rehabilitation of the runway and upgrade of other infrastructure to meet international standards. The government had initially fixed April as the date for the reopening of the airport, but it blamed the outbreak of COVID-19 in the country and the onset of rain for the delay. The Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, however, noted that the project was 90 to 95% completed. And finally, the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Festus Keyamo, on Tuesday said he had got the approval of the President, Muhammadu Buhari, to supervise the recruitment of 7,774 youths under the Special Public Works Program. Keyamo, who disclosed this, said that the President had directed him to supervise the recruitment. And then just one more, the River State government said on Tuesday that it would not allow any harm before the immediate past acting managing director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, Dr. John Unier, with regards to the ongoing probe of the agency. The state government, in a statement by the Commissioner for Information and Communications, Paulinus Nsirim, expressed concerns over recent developments in the interventionist agency. All right, those are some of the issues making the headlines in the political space. And just to remind you that we are streaming live on 3 platforms. First of all, you can watch the live videos on YouTube, Dream TV Enugu. Remember to subscribe to the page, and you can drop your comments there too. On Facebook, it's 925 Dream FM, and on Twitter, it is Dream925 FM. You can send a WhatsApp message to 0902 0020 925. Stay with us. All right, you're welcome. Once again, this is Political Voices on 92.5 Enugu's Dream FM. Usually when there are issues like this, we like to beckon on people who are well versed on the issues of the figures and the budgets and the analysis around it. So this morning we are taking a look at the politics of budgets in Nigeria. We look at the issues and implications, and of course we will be getting the answers from eminently qualified gentlemen who have joined me this morning on the program to talk to us about the issues around budgets and why they don't do so well in this part of the world. I'm joined on the program this morning by Dr. Vincent Onodugo. He's Associate Professor of Management, University of Nigeria, Enugu campus, and he's a management consultant. Good morning to you, sir, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, it's my pleasure to be here.
All right. And also joining us on the program this morning is Dr. Chumikoba. He's the Chairman Board of Trustees, Amaka Chumikoba Foundation. He's an economist and a public policy analyst. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
All right, so we'll start by talking to the first one. We'll talk about politics affecting the budgeting process and its implementation. How political is Nigeria's annual budget? I'll start by asking you that, Dr. Chumikoba. How political is our budget?
Very, very political. The politics of the Nigeria's budget starts from the secular to the ministries, MDA's submissions to the legislators and all the rest of it up. And some of the politics that, as we know, include the budget pardon, it includes the supervision, it includes the oversight, it includes the implementation. And in some cases also, the politics also impacts negatively on the allocations. Sometimes you see the government that said they want to prioritize education, but when you look at the budget figures, you see that more money is allocated to a different ministry or agency, where maybe the person pretending that agency or ministry has more influence. And it also is applicable not just during the budget preparation, but also during the budget implementation on new zone via releases. You find that at the end of the year, when you do the budget implementation analysis, you see some ministries overspending by over 50% or 60%, while some other ministries or agencies are underspending by over 60%. These are some of the politics that have. So you begin to ask yourself, why would a government that had a budget, release more money than is budgeted to a particular agency or ministry, while the other agency is receiving less, and other. So these are the politics that happens. And also you see part of the politics that you are seeing now is what you just read about the 774,000 jobs. The National Assembly feels that they are not being carried along in that particular project, forgetting that the budget for that particular thing has been approved, and as such it behoves on the executive to implement. But the big question is that this morning, as I woke, as I stood up to get ready for this, I just punched the numbers, and I discovered that the budget for the 774,000 jobs, outside the other expenses, the money they will pay for these 3 months, is 46-point-something billion naira. Now the big question is that why would you spend 46.8 billion? So let's say 50 billion naira for just 3 months to get people a job and take them out of job. Sometimes we don't consider the social costs, the social benefits and economic benefits of some of these decisions, and it still boils down to the politics of budgeting in Nigeria. So all honesty, our budget is more skewed to politics than it's skewed to the development objectives.
All right, thank you then. Let's take a look at the budget. If you looking at the budgets over the years, Dr. Onodugo, have we achieved the set goals for which these budgets were passed? Matter of factly, I'm asking you about implementation. Are you excited about the figures in terms of the performance of our budgets over the years? Is this something we should be proud about?
Well, like he said, the foundation is not something we should be proud of. If you look at it over time, the implication, let me start from there. The implication is that people don't take the process seriously, because when you do something, you pass a budget and it's not implemented over time, the tendency is for people to just ignore the entire process because it does not realize the objective for which it is set. To be very specific to your question, over the years, if you take a very trend analysis, we have not passed, on the average, 75% implementation of the budget. So when you set a budget, which is very critical, people must understand that budget is not supposed to be over, because it's a government instrument of allocation of resources, expect some measure of politics. But when it is now more immersed in politics than the purpose for which it is set, which is to allocate resources to the appropriate places so that the welfare of the people will be improved upon, then it becomes an issue. And that's why over the years, people don't take it seriously, because you do a budget and it's not implemented. It does not dovetail or reflect on the improved welfare of the citizenry. Then it becomes an exercise in annual ritual on infutility. Now, like you did mention, part of the problem is that the budget is not anchored on the needs and aspiration of the people. People must understand that budget is the costing of people's plan. You have a plan to build a road, you have a plan to do one or two, A, B, C, D. When you make that plan, it is the process of costing that plan that you call budget. So it's very critical, even at various levels, even organizational level, family level, not to talk about the national level. It is an instrument that channels resources to where your aspirations are. So when it is not effectively implemented over the period, people will start denigrating the process. People will start taking it lying low. So before, in the time past, people take budgeting and budgets very, very seriously. But lately, people are beginning to look at it because they've branded the figures, but it does not reflect, it does not dovetail to improve welfare of the citizenry. In fact, one of the President Muhammad Buhari at one point asked, where is the power for which several billions of dollars and naira have been put into? So when there's a disconnect between the budget and its figures and the welfare of the citizenry, over time people will begin to, so we've not got to the point of effective implementation of the budget, and that's one of the albatross, one of the Achilles heels of our budgeting system in Nigeria. And the implication is that people will take the process less seriously.
All right. Dr. Chimukoba, President Muhammadu Buhari signed into law the revised 2022 budget of 10.8 trillion naira. This has elicited divergent opinions and concerns on the will to implement our annual budgets as against political considerations. Talk to us about your worries about the believability of budgets in Nigeria, looking at what it is that really will help the people to get to the point where they say, okay, yes, government will get it right this time.
You know, as I stated earlier and supported by my boss here, Nigeria's budget suffers from huge credibility issues. The credibility issues stems from overspending, underspending, and unrealistic, ambitious projections. You know, sometimes you project to spend what you don't have. You project to receive what, when you look at the foundations and all the metrics, is not realizable. You know, I took time also this morning to look at some of the non-oil revenue or budget for the country. And one striking thing is that our budget credibility issues are not mainly on the oil revenue. Even though on the oil revenue will suffer low credibility as a result of the output issues, where the government will say do their budget based on 2.1 trillion oil output, when in actual sense over the years you've not exceeded 900,000. You know, that's it offers credibility issue. But the major problem lies in the tax issues, the custom receipts and all the rest of it all, which is also as a function of corruption and all the rest of it all. But answering your questions very well, my fear which also stems to what I call value added. You know, in Nigeria also we look at budget performance mainly based on the amount that was spent, and not based on what if the budget realized its set objectives, and which is a misnomer in budget, in financial management issues. So over time, I've also looked at the issues, the trend, and it's very clear that we just spend money for spending's sake, and which is the reason why even at the National Assembly you see people jostling for juicy chairmanship positions for some MDAs and all the rest of it all. Because the issue is that most of the funds that are even budgeted, even though capital budgets are very small, the little that are budgeted and released are shared among these people. So in the end, we'll still see the money spent without people feeling the impact of this thing. So it is not going to be different. The countries say that they want to diversify the economy using agriculture and job creation. And as I looked at the budget this morning, I just downloaded it last night, so I have not done complete analysis. I discovered that the agri sector received just about 1.25% of the total budget. So the big question is that how then would you say you want to diversify the economy through agriculture and you are just allocating 1.25% of your budget to agriculture? That will not work. They said also that due to COVID, they want to improve the healthcare sector and all the rest of it. And as I looked at the budget also, the Ministry of Health budget is less than 5%. Education budget in the last 4 or 5 years has increased in percentage by over 23%. But when you use the matrix as a percentage of the budget to judge it, education budget is going down. Let me explain it better. It's like I'm getting 1 naira before when the total pool is 100 naira. I'm getting 1,000 naira. And total pool increased to 1 million naira. And you're giving me 200 naira. To the average person, it will appear that you are increasing the money you are giving to me. But in the end, what it means is that you are putting lesser emphasis on me. And that is what also is happening in the education sector. The government is not prioritizing education. They are not in fact, the total budget on education and health, even in this current budget, is less than 11%. Whereas in South Africa, the health budget alone is 15% of the budget. And you say you want to spend on infrastructure. You know, recently also I made it in one of my notes. South Africa's budget for infrastructural development is $28 billion, which is Nigeria's 2020 revised budget. I am not saying that we need to increase our budget, but the big question is that the budget that we've already had, what are we doing with it? And World Bank analysis has shown that in terms of efficiency, Nigeria's budget is less efficient compared to even other small African countries. And that is a big problem, and that is where the credibility issues. So in answering your question succinctly, I am not seeing and I'm not envisaging that anything is going to change, because there's a complete misalignment, you know, from what the government is saying they want to achieve. When you look at it from the budget perspectives, they are not in alignment at all. So that's a big problem on Israel.
All right, thank you. Dr. Onodugo, let's take a look at the content of our budgets, because all the issues he has raised boils down to what makes their way into our budgets. I mean, talk us through some of the very usual budget line items we will find in a typical, maybe a national or state budget in Nigeria, and why such budget line items make their way there, even when it does appear that those budget line items should have outlived their usefulness after maybe 3 budget cycles, but they keep coming up. Talk to us about things that keep recurring in the budgets but never really stops appearing in the budget and never really solves any problem?
Okay, just to build on the credibility issue of our budget. Over the years, we've found a misnomer. If you want to develop, you must look at the ratio of your recurrent expenditure vis-a-vis that of capital expenditure. Over the years, our budget has been consumption-oriented. Even in this revised budget, you notice that close to 50%, when you 4.9 trillion is for recurrent budget, showing that you to consume it within the year. So the capital project is not up to a quarter, just barely about close to hovering around a quarter of the budget. This is where you will use to build your capacity to be productive. Then over the years, you are increasing your recurrent expenditure, the one that will be filtered out, people will filter away through corruption. And then you're diminishing your capital projects. Key sectors, like you mentioned, both education, apart from COVID, that just got about 500 billion. The normal Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health put together, their budget is not, is not up to what you use to renovate the National Assembly. That's the serious issue. And how can you develop your people? How can your human development index or indicators, how can you advance in these key areas of human development if you do not put your resources where your mouth is? Look at agriculture, not up to 2% of your budget. So how do you intend to diversify? So you're saying one thing and doing another. So there are too many things. So we are becoming consumption. We have been, and we have not moved away from it. And that's part of the problem we have with our budget. In fact, let me put it squarely. Budget is aspirational. It's a reflection of what you want to do. So the resources you put in several sectors shows the average person where your direction, your policy direction is geared towards. So, and the major defect of our budget is that it's not anchored on an effective policy and plans. What is the plan? What plan are we running with? In the last 20 years, we've run NEETs, we've run 7-point agenda, we have run transformation agenda, Vision 2020, all of those things. Now, the one that is ongoing is ending this year, economic recovery and growth plan. So you do not have clear plans and policies upon which, because actually it is a cost of your plan and policies that dovetails into what we call budget. So, but when the plans are not aspirational, it does not capture the needs of the people. Look at the state level. There are some various states you go, people judge, and we are also part of the problem. We judge government by the roads they build, by the bridges they build. They give these bridges because that's where they can siphon most of the money. That's where you can take back some of this money. But do people need bridges more than they need, for instance, education? Take, for instance, Ebonyi State. That is, they have a lot to do with human development and education. And you're budgeting, you're building skyscrapers where nobody's climbing. And your poverty, your poverty head count is in the regions of the extreme poverty. Most of your people are in extreme poverty. Over 70% of people are in poverty. And then you're building bridges that only few elites will be using. So our policies are not pro-poor. And the policies and plans are the basis upon which you do a budget. So our budget is essentially consumption oriented, and then you see most of even the process of doing the budget. Establishments, agencies are asked to bring money to National Assembly. So if you become a member of appropriation committee of the National Assembly, you will become a very wealthy person, very important person. They fall over themselves, agencies, heads of agencies and ministries and parastatals fall over themselves to go and see members of the appropriation committee so that they can sort their way through. Otherwise you will not get approved. So when you have budgets that are like that, it can only benefit a few segments of the people, and it do not reflect. The economy will not notice it at all. And that's been our problem. Not to talk about the logistics, the implementation. Okay, now the effective approval is coming in July. And in fact, the president said they should release 50% of the capital budget of all the ministries within 1 month. So you can see it will not be effectively, that's the efficiency you're talking about, it's not to be effectively utilized to be able to. So when you're supposed to build, for instance, construct a road within 12 months, and you are now forced to do it within 2 months, the quality of the road, the finishing, the quality, the finishing processes and all that, even the process of, award will not follow due process. So all of those things will make a budget quite inefficient and quite unreflective of the aspirations and the needs of the people.
All right, just before we get to the phone lines, Dr. Chunkoba, I wanted to take you up on the issue of planning of the budgets, which has come up from what Dr. Onodugo just mentioned. Talk to us about who is supposed to deal with the planning of our budgets. Who are saddled with the responsibility of planning our budgets?
If we heard pros very well, part of the problem is that we don't have a long-term plan. We have ad hoc plans, and it becomes problematic for even effective budgeting and implementation. And we've seen it even in our ICT development policies. When you spoke about HDI, and I recall that Nigeria ranked 152 over 157 countries that are ranked in HDI, and that is not good. But to answer your question, really, planning should be inclusive. It should be inclusive, and that is why we'll talk about participatory planning and budgeting. You can't just sit in an air-conditioned room and start putting things without and that is why during the needs document, the then President Obasanjo had to go around the whole country to get people's input into the plan. Planning is a collective thing. People need to make input, but most especially all the tiers of government are involved in planning. But the planning has to be on the underpinning of where the government wants the economy to be in the next 10, 15, 20 years. But that is not happening in Nigeria as at now, and which is part of the dislocations that we're having. But there's something I want to chip in before you open the line. He said that budget implementation hovers between 70 to 80%. Correct. But the big question is that the performance is more on the recurrent expenditure. The capital expenditure has hovered on the average of 45-50%. In fact, in 2018, is 26%. Now, what we also call capital project, I've said it here severally. If you disaggregate what we call capital budget in a natural sense, it's still recurrent. Because some of the things they classify as capital is not capital. When you start classifying purchase of SUVs, computers and all that as part of your destiny, I don't know what that would do. And some state governments, what they've done, because obviously people are raising eyebrows on some of these things. When you buy SUVs, they buy SUVs every year. And these are the things, some of the, frivolous, just expenses that we witness. Some state governments have witnessed recently have moved from buying black SUVs, to remove people's eyes, and they are buying Halos, which is still the same cost with the SUVs. Now, the big question is that if you check the money we waste on frivolous, and even some state governments take close to 500 million naira every month as security vote, calculate all this money and put them in critical infrastructure, basic infrastructures that will energize the productivity level and output of the state or the nation. You see the economy of the state booming. And as he raised in the planning issue, I was reading also a document yesterday. India, currently, Google, Amazon, all that, are going to India to make investment that is running into hundreds of millions of dollars. The reason is because that India has a long-term ICT policy. So in that case, the government is no longer spending to develop that sector. Private investors are coming to do that. But due to our poor planning process, our poor planning mentality, our poor planning culture, we are not able to get people to invest, as it were, in Nigeria. And what that means is also we don't have what I called aspirational capital to drive development in the system. You have a policy today, by tomorrow you change the policy, and without giving any time frame. You know, you might be driving, you've imported your goods, or you've made. You see what happened in Lagos, the OPay drivers and all that. Somebody has invested billions of dollars, and all of a sudden the state government woke up and said this policy is cancelled. And that is what happened at national level. That's why the federal government will sleep and wake up and say, we'll ban the importation of this, we'll ban this, we'll ban this. You don't say, we'll ban this thing for the next 3 months or 4 months, use it, you just do, boom. So no real investor outside the portfolio investors will come who want to invest in the country. So that is part of the disadvantages of not having a good plan as a nation.
All right.
Again, also,
yes.
you find out that there's inconsistency in the planning principle. We are using historical incremental budgeting. Every year you look at what you did last year and add 1 or 2 things there and move it up. That was what we're using. Suddenly we came up and with zero-based budgeting. That we want to start afresh every year. We'll start all afresh. We'll find that it's not realistic. We've gone to medium-term expenditure, medium-term sector strategies. So we keep shifting the goalposts here and there. Again, another very challenging thing is when people see budgets as a point of, an instrument of marginalization. Yeah. You recall that most of the loans that we borrowed to develop key rail infrastructure, that some segments of the nation has been excluded, as it were. And they feel they have been making this agitation. We are part of this. We're going to pay, our people will pay back this loan you are taking. Why not let it be reflective of entire spread across the nation? And you're doing a budget like that. With that, the chances that people will not take the budgeting and the budget seriously.
I wanted to take you up very quickly on the issue of corruption and budget padding and how it has affected the credibility and believability of our budgets.
That's been the issue. That's what we've been saying. It's inefficient and it doesn't reflect. So when you pad it, essentially to be filtered away. And when you filter it away, so even we are talking about even implementation, whether it's current or the whole, between 70 to 80, it does not reflect. The welfare of the people are increasingly diminishing when you are increasing your budgeting figures. So there's a disconnect between what you're doing in the budget and the budgeting and the welfare of the people. And the implication is that over the period, people will not take you serious. Investors, like you mentioned, will not take you serious because there's no clear policy upon which you're basing your allocation, except that you are doing it for the sake of your pocket. And that's the problem. Okay, look at the issue of the 774,000 jobs. The quality, the hula-bari between the National Assembly and the Minister of State for Labor. The quarrel is who is in control, who will drive it. Essentially, not for the welfare of the people, but for the increment of their private pockets. That's the bane of our budgeting. And until we sort it out. You see, the issue is also that somebody said something, that what obtains here happens elsewhere. But the issue that they have instrument of coercion, they have instrument of restraint. Yeah. We do not have instrument of restraint to discipline people. If we don't, people spend these budgets and go away. Look at what is happening in NDDC.
1.5 billion shared.
That's palliative. That's something 300 and something billion. You give police 400 and something for hand sanitizers. These communities that you're representing, they don't even have water to wash their hands. So it's a serious matter.
Just quickly. Part of the credibility issue also, I was going through budget website this morning to check some things, and something struck me. The government is talking about transparency, accountability, fighting corruption. But do you know that in this country, that the government, MDST, give money to individuals meant for corporations that have done job for the government? Less. You work for Minister of Finance. I am Amaka Chukwuba Foundation. I've done a job for the Dream FM. Instead of paying me directly, money will be paid into your account, and the description will say payment to Amaka Chirikoba Foundation for so job done.
That's a level of corruption.
All right. I know you get the picture, those of you listening. This is Political Voices on 92.5 Enugu's Dream FM. This morning, we are looking at the politics of budget in Nigeria, issues and implications. And this morning, we are joined by Dr. Vincent Onodugo, Associate Professor of Management, University of Nigeria, Enugu Campus, and the Management Consultant. Also in the studio this morning is Dr. Chimukoba, Chairman Board of Trustees, Amaka Chimukoba Foundation. He's an economist and public policy analyst. And you can find your voice on the program as well as watch us live on 3 platforms: YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. On YouTube, you can watch us on Dream TV. Remember to subscribe on the channel. We'll take a few messages on Facebook and go to the phone lines now. On Facebook, 925 Dream FM, Nat Nwoko says, budgeting has become a ritual at most a mere academic exercise in Nigeria. It raises hope. Unfortunately, no one sees it landing or crashing. And Richard George says, budgeting has been an issue in Nigeria. To start with, our budget has never attained up to 30% implementation. Unrealistic figures being projected. George Ume says, budget and budgeting in Nigeria is just a mere formality. Nigeria is just a mess, and our leaders don't want to do anything meaningful to save this drowning nation. Chukwu John Obonna says, how do you talk about budget without budget padding? All I see and think is of just another disguised avenue to steal and divert. Let's take a look at WhatsApp now. Ugwai Valentine Chijioke from Ugwai Valentine Chijioke says, good morning to Alex and resource persons in the studio. It's quite unfortunate that everything's been politicized in Nigeria. Politics of budget is prompted by selfishness of our political leaders. Political godfathers are one of the causes, especially those who succeed in installing a successor while leaving office. They get their way sometimes by padding the budget. All right? Call us on 0809 8888 925 or 0902 00 925. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
What's the name and location?
This is David Robon. I'm calling from Enugu.
You're welcome, David.
Budget and budgeting in Nigeria. Implementation and the credibility of the budget. You know, Alex, I thank the analysts at the studio. Thank God that they have touched in fact, the professor touched me very, very well. In fact, I don't know what to say. In every state, I will not want to talk about that, but let me just go straight to the point. You see, we don't know what we want in Nigeria. We, the people, the leaders, we don't know what we want. Let us go cast our mind at the happenings at Rwanda. The Rwandan president has been busy providing for the people, building an industry that can last for the test of time. And people are busy also trying to build budget from the history, adding few things. People will be seeing some aspect of budget that will be recording and recording. For instance, computer spoon at the National Assembly and the presidency, you can see spoon, computer, the same computer. My own computer, I have used computer for more than 10 years. My own computer, but people will be adding computer in their own budget. What are we talking about? Nigeria, we don't know how to develop people. We are developing ourselves, and we are talking about budget. Nobody talks about budget. We are trying to say life goes on in the country until the people who are even go and they learn the extent of the rudiment of leadership come to the shadow and they rule Nigeria. Otherwise, you are not making a point.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you, and God bless us.
All right, then. So talk to us on 0809 8888 925 or 0902 00 925. And on Facebook, Utika Ebuka says, good morning, Dream FM. Utika the flottist from Oka. The Constitution does not allow for immediate accountability from public office holders. And he went on to talk about Magu and all that. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. All right, I will wait for that. That is a message on WhatsApp line. Good morning, Alex. This is Mwafo Ebube from Ebonyi State. The Nigeria budgeting system is a joke, a situation where they impute money budgeted does not reflect on the output or the things carried out with the money at the end of the it says at the end due to looting and corruption of the various sectors where the monies are being allocated to. All right, thank you. Still, let's check out our phone lines to see who is calling. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
What's your name and location?
Okay, my name is Emmanuel. From my contribution to this, I think the Nigeria lack a leader who is aware of the contemporary theory of Nigeria or like to manage a society. Like I will always say, Nigeria needs to
Right. Unfortunately, I think your line is letting you down. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Like quickly from Facebook, Ejimbe Sonny Bernard says, good morning to you and the resource persons. There seems to be no law that compels governments to account for the previous budget before announcing a new one. This sounds like something we'll take up when we come back into the studio. And this one's on WhatsApp. It says, greetings to you all in the house. This is Amechi from Ebonyi State. The issue of budget in this country has been one, it is always padded, and both the National Assembly through committees and the ministries always conspire to inflate the budget for their selfish reasons. Okay, all right, let me just quickly come back and ask a few questions, because something came up. And is it possible, Dr. Chumukoba, that there could be a law that compels governments to explain what happened to the previous budget before presenting the other one? Is it something that is possible?
You don't need any other law. Naturally, I've raised this issue with some National Assembly members, and in one of the webinars that was done recently, also I raised it with the DG budget office. I've also written basically to the Minister for Finance also on this issue. Naturally, the principle guiding budget is that when you are doing a budget, you have the previous year's budget, the actual expenditure, and the current year budget. But that never happens due to our budget cycle, the way it runs. But I would have expected the government, as a matter of policy, to also, at the end of the year, yes, we know you submit your budget before the budget cycle, finishes, to also give us, in the same way you prepare the previous year's budget, to show us what the actuals are. Even the budget performance that we'll talk about in capital, you don't know which of the capital projects were executed and at what cost. They just tell you 40% was done, was expended. On what and what? You don't know. The recurrent also, you don't know what was spent or what we have spent in different line items the same way you do it. So is a weakness of some of these things are institutional weaknesses, mainly from the National Assembly, I must say, and also the Auditor General's office. Because if National Assembly fails to do it, the Auditor General should be able to tell us that these are the things that are supposed to happen. That's not happen. But one of the things I would recommend is that there should be a punishment for failure to do these things. Because as it stands now, it looks very fluid, open. You can do it if you want to do it, if you don't do it. But the issue is that even when you say there's a penalty, we have seen that due to institutional weaknesses, we have a lot of flaws in this country that are not being obeyed. So the same thing might really happen until we begin to build strong institutions and all that. At state level, we've seen even where the state's House of Assembly are not able to do anything, even when the law permits them to do a lot of things. So I don't want to say we need we need restructuring, but not in the terms people are saying it. We need structuring at all levels to begin to put things the way they ought to be. We have enough flaws, enough things on ground now to begin to do the right things. But due to, most times we circumvent the rule of law by using the Oga syndrome. So it's not a function of getting a new law, but ensuring that what is already in place being implemented.
Dr. Nodugo, the concerns are still very genuine from Nigerians. If they cannot believe the budget of their government, there has to be a way out. And how do you think we can wriggle out of this tight situation?
Well, first of all, let me just put in a word. It's not shortage of laws or institutional mechanisms. It's ability to enforce it. The National Assembly, in the course of before they pass any budget, they must get the key executive members to be able to defend these budgets. In the course of defense, that's when they ought to ask the key questions. And part of their major responsibility is to oversight function. Yeah. But they go for this oversight function, they are giving money and they just leave. So that the issue. That's all is just merry-go-round. So they focus more on appropriation and do less on oversight. So that's by the way. So having said this, I think the way out, just like every other aspect of our national life, the elections and all of those things, all of us are culpable collectively. First, we need to have a set of leadership that is interested in the welfare of the people. If you're interested in the welfare of the people, you draw plans to be able to assuage or meet the needs and the, aspirations of the people. Capture it in a plan. We want to diversify the economy. Then you want to diversify the economy. How do you diversify? Okay, let us empower the agricultural sector and the manufacturing sector. Create an enabling environment for manufacturing sector. Build them infrastructure. If you have that plan, the infrastructure will take a good chunk of your budget. And then people will be consulted in the course of doing the plan. That is participatory planning and participatory budgeting. The people have the right to say, to right, to dictate or to say, this is what we want. When you consult the people, that's what actually the National Assembly members ought to be doing. Yeah. They should have constituency offices where they consult and liaise with the people and say, this is what we want. And then they go and make sure that it's enshrined in the Constitution. And you supervise it all through. So if you have responsible and accountable leadership who are interested in the welfare of the people, and they do a plan, because actually budgeting is costing the plan, they do a plan that reflects the wishes of the people, and they cost those plans and monitor those plans to implementation, then we'll have a change. Otherwise, so for the people, elect people that will represent you, that will be able to champion your cause of your aspiration and ensure that it's enshrined in budget and supervise it to fruition. If we get people who are compromised from the outset, then we'll have issues.
Okay, then. This is still Political Voices on 92.5 Enugu's Dream FM. Back to the phone lines 090200200925 or 080988888925. Here on WhatsApp, there is a message from, it says, Nigeria's budget never strive for the need of the populace. It only seems to be a way of stealing by our leaders, and the rich keep getting rich and the poor keep getting poorer. Hello. Hello, good morning.
Hello. Good morning. Alex.
What's your name and location?
Okay, this is Chinedu calling from Abakaliki.
You're welcome.
Okay. The truth is that this country is in a mess. I think, for instance, you see NTA. These people keep budgeting money for NTA every year. It's the same NTA that's supposed to be remitting money for the federal government. Now they budget money every year. They buy cameras. It doesn't mean that every year at the end of the day they throw away all the cameras and buy new ones the next year. So we're in a very big problem. That's all I can say.
All right. Thank you so much for your contribution. And we'll take another call. Hello, good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
What's the name of location?
My name is Linus, and I'm calling you from Enugu.
All right, you're welcome.
Prof and Dr. Good morning. You see, Alex, there's no need to stress you this morning like that on phone. The problem of budget implementation in Nigeria is corruption. The National Assembly is there to go on oversight function and effective supervision of budget implementation. We are not hearing from them every end of the year. How can you implement budget and nobody is permitting you? The implementation is channeled into their pocket, not reflecting on the economy. So it's clear that the problem of Grand General Nigeria is corruption. When are we going to get over corruption? We pray hard that we get over corruption. That is it. Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you so much. Let's come home and wrap it up now on the program. We'll have to take your final thoughts. Dr. Chimikoba, or your final thoughts on the issue of politics of budgets.
First, as we have said here in the studio, planning, our budgeting should stem from the plans, and the plan has to be participatory, inclusive. The citizens has to be part of the entire process of the plan. Secondly, our budget needs to be very transparent and citizen and centered, wherein we know what is happening, how this thing is, the money is being spent, and all that. And if the citizens are involved, it will help to reduce the overinflation of budgets or projects. Because part of the issue is that even when you talk about capital implementation, you find out that most of the projects are overinflated, which you would have used part of the money to implement other things that would have benefited people. So when you look at the social cost and this thing, it becomes even more than we are looking at it currently. Because if you have spent 100 billion to do a project, you would have spent 50 billion to do. What it means that the economy and the citizens are losing over 300 billion. Because by the next year, given the inflationary trend and all the stuff it all and the cost of capital, the money that would have been used to do a project this year, by next year would have increased or quadrupled. So that has another cost that we look at. Then those who would have benefited from those projects if they were done this year would not have benefited. And so some of them may have died. Some of them whose economy would have improved may not have improved. So this becomes an issue. So I want a government that will have a transparent budgeting system that is inclusive. And the citizens' budget also needs to be more open and, I'm translating in different languages that people will be able to access. Sometimes they put some of these things online. Not every one of us are IT savvy. So National Orientation Agency also should live up to their responsibility of educating the citizens on some of these things.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Vincent Onodugo, your final thoughts.
I think we need to appreciate, both from the leadership and from the led, that the world has become a global village. That what happens in one corner affects every other person elsewhere. If just like we've been failing in effective budgeting and transparent budgeting and inefficient budgeting, the whole world is watching us. They won't come and invest in an atmosphere that is not stable. Today you're blocking your importation and you're buying foreign products, SUVs. Why not patronize local? When people see policy inconsistency, they will stay aloof. Whatever you want to do, be very consistent. People would like to jump in a bus that has a direction. And that's what we have done through budgeting. We've not shown sufficient direction in our policy planning and budgeting. So we need to do that. Again, also, I also think that at the end of the day, we need to get it right with the citizenry. Everybody must know that we must elect people that are transparent. We keep talking about accountable and transparent leadership, but we are the ones that elected those ones. Right. Sometimes we are also culpable. So we need to rise up. All the politics taking place, both in APC, in EFCC, are all geared towards 2023. All right. So let all the citizens rise up for the first time and vote people that be accountable to us.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Vincent Onodugo, Associate Professor of Management, University of Nigeria, Enugu campus, and he's a management consultant. Thank you for your time on the program this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
And Dr. Chimikoba, Chairman Board of Trustees, Amaka Chimikoba Foundation. He is an economist and public policy analyst. Thank you for your insight, as always, on the program.
It's always my pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks to my production assistant, Lotanna Okereke, and to my producer, Okeodogu. I'll leave you with these words from Dave Ramsey. A budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. My name is Alex Obodo. The Dream FM News at 10 comes up next. Good morning.
Onye ọkwọ ụgbọala, gịnị ka ị nwere ikwu?
Onye ọka iwu agwakwara nwaanyị ahụ oge m butere ya ahụrụ m na o yighị ihe mkpuchi iru. E nyere m ya otu mana nwaanyị a dị isi ike. O nweghị ihe na-agwa ya mana o kweghị eyi ya. Jụọ ọnụ ndị